Hello, Duke fans, and welcome to DBR Bites, episode number 15. I am your host for this episode. I'm Sam Klein. I'm joined by Jason Evans. Jason, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. It's been an interesting day for Blue Devil fans.
Yes, it has. I think the topic that listeners may be looking for our reaction on immediately is Dana O'Neill's piece in The Athletic today about how Jon Scheyer plans to not recruit as many freshmen in the future. And we would love to react to that, but we were discussing it today.
By the way, Sam, there are like 19 different ways you can read into that.
oh, absolutely. And I can't wait to talk about it. And we were, you, me, and Donald were talking about it this afternoon, but we couldn't
via
get
text.
all three of us.
Via text chain,
yes.
right?
Not on the show.
Right.
But we couldn't figure out when all of us would be able to get online to talk about it. So here's what we're going to say. This episode is our preview for the Virginia Tech game, which is on Saturday. Return game that Duke gets against Virginia Tech.
I'll be there. Sitting in some primo seats, courtesy of fan of the podcast who has become a friend of mine. Just a great guy. I'm super excited about this.
Jason will be at the game, which is awesome. So I won't be there, unfortunately, but Jason will be there. So he's got the eyes in the room for us. We are going to do another episode that will hopefully get out in the next day or two to talk about the Dana O'Neill article. In the meantime, read it. Hopefully you're subscribed to The Athletic so you can read it. Brendan Marks also had a great interview this week with Coach K that I don't think we touched on either. So we probably have to do like a whole recap of everything The Athletic has written about Duke basketball.
Yeah, basically, if you don't have a subscription to The Athletic, then you're missing out on some really impressive content. Because between Dana O'Neill and Brendan Marks and some other Sam Vecini, some other people who cover college basketball, it's like, wow, it's really, really good content.
But none of the stuff that came out this week from The Athletic is going away. So here's what I'm going to tell you to do. Hold tight. While you're holding tight, go to the DBR forums and participate in the discussion there. And we will give you our thoughts in podcast form in the next day or two. Is that fair?
Yeah. By the way, Sam, so it was hysterical. So I saw the article about Jon Scheyer and the, perhaps, a significant shift in his recruiting philosophy. And I posted the link on the Duke Basketball Report forums. And I was like, I wonder if people are going to really think, I think this is a big deal. This seems like something significant. I wonder if people will agree with me. Like inside of 2 hours, the thread had like 80 posts in it. Like it exploded. People clearly read the same thing I did and said, "Oh, we've been eager for Duke to maybe gently move away from the one and done thing. Looks like it may be happening." Okay, we're talking about too much. We can't do this.
There's a lot to get into. So we're not going.
Donald's going to be mad.
We're going to preview the Virginia Tech game, and this won't need to be as comprehensive a preview as we usually do, because of course this is the second time that Duke is playing Virginia Tech this season. It was almost exactly a month ago that Duke went up to Blacksburg and lost a very tight game to Virginia Tech. The final score was 78-75. You may recall it, you may not. Duke now gets the return game at home. Since that game,
Sam, should we call it the throat punch game? It's the throat punch game.
The throat punch game, sure.
Yes.
Since then, Virginia Tech has gone 4-4. We talked about going into that game how Virginia Tech had been really hot early in the season. They came into ACC play with just one loss, and then they proceeded to poop the bed for the first half of ACC season. They have somewhat righted the ship, I think, in a little bit. Since then, they've got a win against Virginia. They've got a win against Pittsburgh, but it doesn't feel like they're headed to the NCAA tournament given the number of bad ACC losses that they've racked up. So, Jason, start me off with what has Virginia Tech done in that time since they last played Duke in going 4-4 in sort of the middle portion of the ACC schedule?
Yeah, so the wins actually look pretty good. The 4 wins you mentioned, Virginia and Pitt, they were games at home. They were games at Virginia Tech, but still beating Virginia and Pitt, two teams at the top of the standings. No shame in that. I mean, that's a really good result for Virginia Tech. They also beat Syracuse at home, and they got a road victory over Notre Dame. So you're thinking like, dude, that looks pretty great. They have road losses though to Miami and Georgia Tech. No shame in losing to Miami. Losing to Georgia Tech, that's a problem. And they have home losses. They lost at home to Miami again and to BC. Those losses to Georgia Tech and BC are just killers. It's kind of shocking that a team that could beat, Duke and Pittsburgh and Virginia could lose to BC and Georgia Tech. It shows you how up and down, how schizophrenic this Virginia Tech team is from game to game.
Jason, they're 0-2 against Boston College this year.
Yeah, it's like, how I don't get it. I don't get it. And the crazy thing is, it looked like the win over Duke. They'd had some injury problems, key players who had missed time earlier in the season, and you went, okay, well, that's why they struggled early in ACC play. They got healthy. Hunter Couture came back. They got healthy, and you went, okay, this win against Duke that they had is going to vault them in the right direction. And people were even talking about Virginia Tech, finishing the season going 7-1 or something like that over their final 8 games. There was all kinds of talk that they were going to do something like that and finish like 500 in the ACC. Didn't happen at all. There was talk they might push for an at-large bid. Virginia Tech is currently 6-11 in the ACC. The only way they're going to the NCAA tournament is if they win the ACC tournament, which they don't seem poised to do. In fact, they're pretty likely to be playing 5 games in 5 days, which is just not a good formula for this team. They're probably playing in the NIT at best.
So if I look back at Duke's first game against Virginia Tech, it's such a funny thing to be reviewing games from a month or two ago, because the first question that I have when I do look at the box scores is, wait, who played for Duke in this game? So just to refresh, Duke had the entire roster healthy for this game. Jeremy wrote,
hold on. Dariq Whitehead got,
Dariq Whitehead was injured during this game.
Right. Fairly early in the second half, and he was playing arguably his best ball of the season before he got hurt.
But Jeremy Roach was in this game. Dereck Lively was in this game.
Correct.
Dariq Whitehead got hurt during this game. The other thing that I remember from this, now that I'm playing refresh on it, is Grant Basile just lit Duke up in this one. Duke could not stop him at the rim, and that was the main issue. But since then, and Jason, you tell me if you think I'm onto something here. Since then, Dereck Lively has gone from, decent interior defender to complete freak in playing defense against big men. So is the key against Virginia Tech this time around that Dereck Lively is just going to haunt Grant Basile into Duke getting a victory at home against the Hokies?
I mean, I think that's entirely possible. Lively did not play a great deal in that first game. As you mentioned, Basile goes for 24 points and 8 rebounds. It's worth noting, Kyle Filipowski went for 29 points and 10 rebounds, and they were guarding each other a lot of the time. Maybe I should revise that. They didn't guard each other very much.
Not at all.
One guy goes for 29, the other guy goes for 24. But I really think, like you said, that we're going to see Dereck Lively trying to take Basile out of his game a little bit. It is worth noting that lately Basile has been stepping outside a lot. He's been shooting a lot of 3-pointers. Like, it's not uncommon for him to throw up 7, 8, maybe even 10 3-point attempts in a game. And he has been, we knew he was a decent player coming into that game. And, the 24 points was a little eye-opening. Since then, he has been a real stud. Like, in his past 5 games, Grant Basile has gone for 33 on 2 different occasions. He also has 2 other games over 20 points. In his past 5 games, dude's averaging like 25 plus points per game. So he is playing really great basketball. I'm super eager to see what Duke does to shut him down, because I think Lively, ordinarily you'd be like, oh, putting your center on this guy who goes inside and out. But Lively's so mobile. I really think it's going to be, I think you'll see Duke playing Basile with Lively a pretty good bit, and it could really frustrate him. And I don't know what Virginia Tech turns to without that.
On the topic of big men, the other thing that Virginia Tech did a great job of against Duke is holding Duke to just under 30% on offensive rebounding opportunities, a place where Virginia Tech is only, sort of a middling team, and Duke is obviously still very good despite a couple of shaky performances. So stick with the big man topic for now. What do you anticipate in this game on the offensive glass?
Well, Virginia Tech is not a particularly great rebounding team. I think that, they may have just sort of risen to the occasion. They're not they're not terrible at it. I mean, they're better on.
Are you telling me, Jason, that Castle Coliseum is a house of horrors?
Yeah, to some extent, the crowd certainly lifted them in that game. But I would expect that Duke would do a better job of offensive rebounding in this game than they did in the last one. I mean, both because it is in Cameron and because I think that Virginia Tech, they're just not a team that consistently gets that many defensive rebounds. They're like ranked in the 120s or something like that in defensive rebounding. They do a good job of not fouling. I mean, that's one of the things they're really good at, but they're not good at forcing turnovers. On defense, I feel like they're going to struggle a little bit to stop Duke, assuming that we're still shooting fairly well. It feels like lately Duke's offense has advanced a bit. Duke's offense has struggled throughout the year at times. I like the fact that we're playing a team that doesn't force a ton of turnovers, because that has been the big problem for Duke this season. But again, Virginia Tech's just not good at that aspect of basketball.
Jason, what else do you have on Virginia Tech? What else are you looking forward to in this rematch?
So the big thing for them when they succeed, it's on offense. They're one of the top 30 offensive teams in the country, which is really, really impressive. And they are, I was talking about turnovers a minute ago. They are truly outstanding at hanging on to the ball. They're 12th in the country at turnover percentage. They're pretty good shooters, especially from 2-point range. They're good, but not great from three. They're a little bit above average, but from 2-point range, they're one of the best field goal shooting teams in the country. Sort of weird, by the way. They're a very poor offensive rebounding team. I don't think they'll get a lot of boards on the offensive end against Duke, and they do a terrible job of getting to the free throw line. I mean, literally like one of the bottom 30, 40 teams in the country in terms of the number of free throws that they end up shooting. Ken Pomeroy says that Duke wins this game 74-67. And it's worth noting when talking about the advanced metrics and Sam, in comparing where Virginia Tech was when Duke played them last time and where they are now, which is where we sort of started this conversation. When Duke played Virginia Tech in the first game, they were number 47 in Pomeroy's rankings. So their record was not very good, but their metrics, their in terms of their actual scores and how they did it at efficiency was pretty strong. That's why people were saying they expected this Virginia Tech team to rise up and do a lot better the back half of their ACC schedule. They were a top 50 team, which means they were a bubble kind of team when Duke played them last time. They are currently number 72 in Ken Palm's rankings. They have fallen, more than like 25 spots since Duke played them last time. And it sort of shows you this thing that we were talking about at the beginning, that, yeah, they've had some decent results, but for the most part, this team has underperformed what the expectations were for them in a pretty significant way. And since Duke played them last time, they are playing worse than they were prior to that, even though their record is arguably better now than it was then.
So we will look forward to that game. Just to remind you about the context here, Duke has 3 games left in the regular season. They've got this Saturday against Virginia Tech. They've got Tuesday, the final home game, that's senior night against NC State. And then, of course, next Saturday down there at the Dean Dome. So 3 games left. Duke is 20-8. They are, it seems like, in solid position to gain some ground in their NCAA tournament seeding projection. So Duke can not easily, but it feels like they've got an opportunity to win their last 3 games of the season and feel much better about their seeding chances.
Yeah, there's no question about that. I mean, they will be favored certainly against Virginia Tech and NC State, because both those games are in Cameron, but those are not easy games. NC State especially has been playing really good basketball lately. And as much as Duke will want revenge for our very, very unfortunate trip to Reynolds, NC State's a really good opponent. And that game against Carolina, they could be super desperate. It is entirely possible that Carolina will be playing for their tournament life in that game. So most of the metrics will tell you, most of the experts will tell you, yeah, Duke could win these last 3 games. No question about it. I mean, it's not like we have a a road game at Miami or at Virginia, really, really tough. But at the same time, this is one of the harder, home stretch schedules of any team in the ACC. They could go 3-0, but you got to take them one at a time because any one of these three opponents could certainly win.
Jason, I love that you think that NC State still plays at Reynolds Coliseum.
Whatever the hell. You're right. I know.
That was a great old ACC moment. I love, you know what? I love that. I love that.
I'm flowing. It's all coming out.
No, it's great. It's great.
In my head. What is it PNC Arena? Wait,
they
PNC
now play
Arena.
it. Yeah, I think it's now called PNC Arena.
Whatever. I saw a concert in Reynolds Coliseum. I saw who was Jethro Tull in Reynolds Coliseum.
What?
Yes. When I was in college, I went to a Jethro Tull concert at Reynolds, and it was amazing.
Wait, can we talk about that for a Bites? I would love to know about the Jethro Tull concert. Anyway,
I am to please. And the crazy thing is, Sam, I don't go to a lot of, I'm not a big concert guy. I know there are a lot of people out there.
I'm a concert guy, so it gives me lots of joy to hear about people who are not concert people telling me they went to cool shows.
Yeah,
Like my mother has seen the Grateful Dead multiple times, and my mother could name you maybe 3 Grateful Dead songs, which like the real, not like I've seen like Dead and Company, but that's different. So
I need to correct myself. It wasn't Jethro. I saw Jethro Tull someplace else. I saw Rush at Reynolds Coliseum.
Also cool.
Maybe better than Jethro Tull.
Depending on your proclivities.
Yeah.
Those are both great stories. Okay, awesome. NC State doesn't play in Reynolds. The NC State women do. I don't know when the last time the NC State men's team played in Reynolds, but we wish they would go back. We miss the days of everyone's got to play in their own Cameron Indoor. None of these get rid of big arenas. Big arenas are dumb.
I couldn't agree more. My mind went back to the last time I went to an NC State game, and it was definitely in Reynolds. So
awesome. All right. So that's that. I think we're done. We've deviated too much. Duke plays Virginia Tech on Saturday. We will be back before that to talk about Duke-related articles from The Athletic and any other topics that come up. So for Jason Evans, for Donald Wine, who's not here, but who you will hear from very shortly in the next couple of days, I am Sam Klein. This has been DBR Bites, episode 15, Duke Band. Take us home.
By the way, I said Reynolds, and I was like, they don't play in Reynolds.
There's no way they play in Reynolds.